This is kind of the first kickoff event of announcing a project that me and a bunch of other people are working on, trying to create a community for parent entrepreneurs, because we all know that parenting and entrepreneurship are two of the most challenging paths that you can take in life, and when you combine the two, it just blows things all over the place. And there are fortunately a lot of complementary skills that as you improve in business, you can translate a lot of those skills into being a better parent and vice versa. So this community is really about bringing those people together to share the experiences, the challenges, and especially the resources that make being both a parent and an entrepreneur easier. So the purpose of this panel today is to kind of share some of those experiences with you. These are three extremely successful entrepreneurs and parents from right here in the Valley, and they are willing to share their stories this morning and answer some questions that we've prepared, but also some questions that you might be able to kind of throw at them that would be relevant and helpful to you in whatever part of the journey you're on today. Okay, so just to introduce our actual panel, we have our moderator, Nunzio Bruno, who is both a professor of economics and finance at Bay Path and Elms College, and also is a business strategy expert. He owns his own company, Disruptive Strategy Co. So make sure you check him out. And on your programs for today is everybody's kind of really brief intros, as well as where to find them online. Next to Nunzio, we have Mr. Doug Foresta, who is a coach, a licensed social worker, podcast speaker, author, radio host, you name it. And actually, Doug has been a real big resource to me too for launching the podcast, which many of you have probably heard. Next to Doug, we have Miss Hannah Gyovai, who is a interfaith minister and also owns a company called Ceremonies that helps people create beautiful kind of ritualized experiences for their memories, whether it's welcoming a new baby into the world or celebrating a marriage or any kind of life event that you want to memorialize in a really concrete, permanent way for yourself and your friends and family. And finally, at the end, we have Miss Kristen Davis, who is the fascinating personality behind the Platinum Pony, which is a really cool venue spot in East Hampton. Relatively new in its iteration right now, but I can't wait for her to share more of her story about that, because I find both Kristen and the space and the mission of the space really fascinating. It's a blend of the creative economy and real kind of underground community cool stuff. So I hand you the panel, and Nunzio will take it from here. Yay. Thank you so much.
So to start with, I want to give you three the opportunity to kind of tell a little more of your story, right? So Tara did an awesome job of summarizing kind of the bios really quick, but talk about what inspired you to get to where you are today, and then how, let's just start with that. So a little bit about your background, and then what kind of motivated you to go out into the world and create something for yourself. Just start it off.
All right, so yeah, I'm Doug Foresta, and I worked for 10 years. I worked for DCF, which many of you might know, DCF, DSS for 10 years. And I always have had sort of entrepreneurial spirit. I always knew that I wanted to do something else. And in about 2000, after my son was born in 2005, and about 2006, 2007, I said, I really want to, I like speaking, I love sharing my message, and at the time it was about creativity, and I want to inspire people to be more creative. And so I started going to National Speaker Association NSA meetings, and I very soon realized that I didn't want the life of a speaker as a parent, because being on the road as a professional speaker 52 weeks a year just wasn't, I just realized like that wasn't going to be my path. I didn't want to be away so much as a parent, and that's, and I knew that that's what it would take to be a professional speaker in the way that I saw people doing it. So I was working with a coach at the time, actually, who some of you might know, Angela Lucier, and I was one of her first paying clients. And she, right after she left her job, And she actually was the one that I said, I'd really like to speak or have some type of platform, but I don't want to travel. And I was like, radio might be good, but I have no idea how to get into radio. And I don't know that, it seems exhausting, the thought of starting a radio show. And so Angela was the one that said, have you thought about podcasting? I was like, no, what's podcasting? And I had no idea, never heard of it before in my life. And this was about 2008, 2009. And I started on Blog Talk Radio. I always tell people the first time that I started my very first podcast, I was so nervous. It was live, because it was the technology for Blog Talk Radio was live streaming over the internet. And after I looked at my metrics, I was actually the only one listening, so I shouldn't have been that nervous. But in my mind, there were lots of people listening, and I remember doing it. My first show was called Break Free to Success, and I said, hello, this is Doug Foresta, welcome to Break Free from Success, which evidently is a show for people who just have too much success and just want to get rid of it. You're tired of that success thing, you want to do something different. And Escape to Failure was my follow-up show. And so I started doing it. I was very nervous, and I thought, oh my God, I can't do this. But over time, I really found that I enjoyed doing it, and the more that I did it, the better I got at it. Over the past couple of years, other people started asking me, how did you do this? And I started showing them how to start their own podcast. And so that's really, it's funny because it goes back to my original, it actually goes back to my original thing, which is helping people express their creativity. I just found a more specific way to help people do that. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, moving down the line. Hi, everyone. It's been nice to talk to so many of you already this morning. It was interesting that you said entrepreneurial spirit, because I feel like that's something that I've always possessed, and I didn't realize I would ever take the avenue that it has. But I think that was a quality that I had throughout all my, other hats that I wore as a career professional. And as I shared on the podcast, my story of having a calling to become a minister, I had an experience during meditation where I heard this voice say, your purpose is to be a minister. So for me, it was very clear and sort of out of my hands, it felt like, that I was supposed to do this thing, which was as far off of what I had been doing before as it could possibly be. But I think if anybody's ever had a knowing in your heart about something, whether it's you're supposed to marry this person, or you're going to have a boy or a girl, child, or something, that sense stays with you, and you kind of can't shake it. And so for me, the calling was that, and still is that, and that's the driving force of starting my business, and that's what guides me, is just the sense that this is what I'm supposed to do. I did go to a 2-year seminary to become an ordained interfaith minister, because I'm not religious, but I wanted to be a minister, to follow this calling. And that was the way that I could figure out how to understand more about faith and world faiths and people of different faiths and people of no faith, and still become a minister and be able to serve all of these different people. So, and like Tara said, as a minister, primarily what I offer people are ceremonies. I do counseling and Reiki and prayer and visuals, but my business as Grace Ceremonies is wedding ceremonies and baby blessings, memorial services, and as Tara said, really anything that you're going through that's a transition or a milestone, I would love to create a custom ceremony for.
All right, I'm Kristen Davis, owner of the Platinum Pony, and I have been an entrepreneur since birth, probably. My mom can tell stories of some of my earliest businesses at flea markets, from little lanyard keychains to necklaces, and it's all I've ever done. I actually opened my first official formal business at 23. I opened a restaurant in Honduras, and that grew very quickly and developed into more, and then I sold that, and then opened a second one, and a food service business, and a deli, and then opened another restaurant in Thailand, and then found myself here in the Valley, and have had a couple of different businesses here, but most people know me currently as the Platinum Pony, but formerly as Popcorn Noir. My business models tend to be highly imaginative, very creative, rarely financially successful, but that's okay, because one of them will be, and it will make all of the other ones seem totally fine. But the driving force is just this constant desire to create, to see what's lacking, to collaborate, to develop ideas in this highly a creative fashion that people are like, wait, you opened a free movie theater? How are you going to make any money? Well, I don't know. That doesn't really matter. But you need a free movie theater because there's a demand, there's a need, there's a hole in the market. Creating something that ties different things together that you'd never expect. So for me, the background has always been there. The drive is there. The entrepreneurial spirit is strong. I now identify as a serial entrepreneur, which is a little scary because my family knows this isn't the end. There are more to come, and God knows what's next. But it's exciting because there's always potential there. You create an idea, and it gives me a platform to encourage a lot of people. Having had so many businesses, I work now with a lot of different folks. I do speaking engagements. I do a lot of writing to encourage their ideas. That when you come with something that seems totally ludicrous, you're talking to a woman that says, yeah, you can do that. I see a way. Let's figure out how to turn something that's seemingly unrealistic and impossible into an actual business opportunity. And not worry about whether it's going to pay today, but rather how you can connect and how you can build something. And if you build it strong and create that foundation, it will come back to you in time. So I work a lot and encourage people and do that and stay active in every possible place because it's good for me and it's good for you.
That is awesome. Okay, so I'm going to put you guys on the spot now. 3 awesome stories, very diverse stories. So definitely looking forward to, I'm sure everybody's looking forward to, the 3 pieces of advice you'd be willing to give parents who either are looking to be parentpreneurs or want to kick up their parentpreneur game. So you guys can fight it out or line together.
Some advice.
Yeah, 3 pieces of advice. Go a piece
One of
each.
the things that came up for me when I was talking to Nina was that I feel like you have to have something you're going toward, not just something you're going away from. That the drive away from is not enough to take you on your path. That, for me it was calling, and that's something that stayed with me. And I think it can be this thing that you're driven to do, even if it's just, it might be many different variations, but it's a drive to create, it's a drive to share, it's a drive to encourage. That to focus on what is the positive and the draw for you will take you so much further than what you don't want to do and what you're trying to get away from. So I would say to keep that in mind. I would also say, one of the things my mom always said was relax your timeline. That I tend to get really stressed out in crunches, like the time crunch, right? So I have to think about the bigger picture of things, the longer view, the meta of what's going on, rather than getting more and more and more and more down the rabbit hole. So I feel like if you can relax your timeline and expand your view about your goal and about what you're doing as an entrepreneur and as a parent, you will have an easier time. I would also say support. Like I wanted somebody who feels very competent and very capable and feel like, I can do this, I've got this. And then I end up feeling crazy because being a parent and being an entrepreneur are both tremendously time-consuming and challenging and rewarding. So I feel like asking for help and making sure that there are people who have your back, concrete things like more childcare, making sure that your partner or spouse, whatever, shares your vision, so you're not going to be fighting about where your extra time or your extra money is going. Making sure that you have a massage scheduled every once in a while or a breakfast date with a friend, just to really make sure that you have built in a support network as much as you possibly can, or at least to consider that that's an important factor.
I'll field this one. Be on time. As a parent, that is so hard to do because there are so many things that are distracting us. But once you step out of your parent world and your family unit, the rest of the world doesn't care about your kids. And that sucks and it hurts to hear they expect you to be on time. And so you have to build that into your schedule. If it means you leave an hour before you need to be someplace and it only takes you 15 minutes to get there, you're on time. And that's one I constantly work at, and I still really like punctuality. Whether it's in business, whether it's in family, whatever it is, makes all the difference because your clients, your customers, whoever you're engaging with, they don't want you to waste their time. And it will impact your professionalism and how you represent yourself in your business. Find a way to integrate your children and your family into your business. That's always, it's an up and a down. There's risks with that. But if you find that you have to operate your business completely separate from your family, like right now, I arguably own a nightclub. There are times where I'm like, is this the environment that I want to raise my son in? And when I ask myself that question, the answer would be, sure, why not? It's what I have. It's where I'm at. So by keeping him out of it, that only creates frustration and stress, and then I'm trying to do these two things separately, when really I need to integrate them. So find a way. My son the other day came in and he goes, Mom, can I wear your feather boa to the burlesque tonight? Do you even know what burlesque is? And he's like, no, but I know they wear feather boas. And I'm like, yes, you can wear my feather boa, but it doesn't start until 8, and you're going to be leaving at 6. And he's like, that's okay. So, you find this way that you can connect to the two and that you're comfortable with, but that your family can also celebrate in your achievements, that they're a part of what you're doing, that they maybe understand at a cursory level the operation of your business or your venture, and they can encourage you in that and support you. You don't necessarily need to know the nitty-gritty. And then my third piece of advice, what's the third one? I had it and I've lost it. Risk. When you take the path of being an entrepreneur, you're taking on risk. And there are times that the stress and the strain of that, this is advice I need to hear myself, the stress and the strain of those risks can be really overwhelming. And you stop and you go, how are we going to make the money to pay for this? How am I going to find the time to do that? You have to accept and acknowledge those risks and persevere and go forward in spite of it. You have to just dismiss all of the sort of naysaying in the back of your mind or people around you that are like, I don't know if this is such a good idea. There's no security. There's no, stability. I once heard stability is sexy. I say creativity is sexy. Risk-taking is sexy. Adventure is really sexy. So you have to kind of put that out of your mind and accept that you've chosen a path that is not going to be set in stone, that doesn't have that concrete paycheck every week or whatever it is, and just do it anyways. Dismiss the fear and move forward, because the fear will hold you back. So let it go and just full steam ahead.
So I think I'm just going to pretty much, what you guys have shared has definitely been what I was thinking, but I'll just say a little bit more about my own spin on kind of this shared. So the support piece, I think one of the things that's really important for support is that I know for myself, I worked for a state job for 10 years. I mean, before that I did lots of other things. I worked in advertising for a company that manufactured spy equipment, and I worked as an overnight doorman at a hotel in Times Square. So I did lots of other things. I wasn't only a state employee, but I had to make this shift after having been 10 years of a state employee, mindset. I don't know that I ever had the mindset. I just was in the job. But when I left to do other things, people looked at me like I was crazy. They just couldn't understand walking away from a pension that was worth well over $1 million. And doing that, why would you do that, right? It's insane. And one of the things that I found was that I felt very lonely when I started doing this. And I think it's really important that support is not just support, but support from other entrepreneurs, support from people who get it. And I think that's what's great about having people here that actually have children and are entrepreneurs, that you understand that challenge. Because other people may want to support you, but they just might not understand. They don't understand. It's just like talking to somebody that speaks another language. And you talked about risk being sexy. It's like, not for a lot of people. Go out and say, hey, I want to take a risk today. See how many people take you up on that. If they take you up, they're entrepreneurs. Everybody here would be like, sure, what are we doing? The other thing that I think is really important is the piece about also, definitely bringing your child into, at least explaining to your child what you're doing, and bringing them, my son's here with me today, and really kind of integrating that, but not having the expectation, our child can follow whatever path they want, and if they want to become entrepreneurs, great. If they don't, they don't. But at least they understand that there's this other option. They know that there's this other way of living. It's not just this one way. So I think that is really important. And then lastly, I think you had mentioned drive, right? People who drive. And I really do believe this. This is the other piece. I know that we're going to talk about how far would you go for success. And You know, it's funny because there's two types of drive to me. There's kind of the external drive of like, I'm gonna be the best, you know, and I'm gonna walk around and I'm gonna drive a Mercedes and people are gonna look at me. So that's one kind of drive, like an external drive. And then there's the internal drive of this voice that says, you have to do this or you'll never feel fulfilled. That internal drive. And I think that we have to stay connected as entrepreneurs in that, and as parents, to that internal drive, that part that, why am I doing this? You know, I don't know about you, but I've had many moments where I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why am I doing this? It's so hard. You know, it's so much easier to be doing something else. And then to me, it always comes back to that drive. You know, if you think about Barbara Sher, who wrote Witchcraft, and It's Only Too Late If You Don't Start Now, she says, you know, a horse can swim, but they'd much rather gallop. You know, a horse, you can make a horse swim, but watch a horse when they're like out in open field and running. There's just this pure joy. So as entrepreneurs, like we can have a job, you know, but you know, when we really come alive is when we're being creative and being entrepreneurs. I think connecting to that drive in those hard moments it will keep you going.
Thank you. So I really appreciate that you've already kind of peppered in where I want this the next piece of this. So we've talked about some positive things, right? So the aspirational components of it, right? What kind of advice would you guys give? So now I want to shift the gears a little bit and flip it to challenges. So I want to say no definite list, but what have been some of your challenges in balancing work and parenthood, and what have you learned from them in your experiences?
It's hard to turn your brain off sometimes. You're sitting there doing the puzzle for the 15th time, and I'm not thinking about the puzzle. I'm thinking about the to-do list that's not getting done. And that's one that we constantly have to remind ourselves to take the time away from work, turn our work brain off, and focus on our family. It's really easy to get caught up. Days go by, and I'm like, what did we do today? And I can't remember what I did with my son, but I remember all the work that I did. And he was there with me all day. And I'm like, you know, stop, take the time, separate your brain. We talk about you have to bring them together, you also have to pull them apart, and allow yourself the time to focus on your family, to enjoy the little things, and forget about the challenges, the strain, the stress, the money, the whatever it is in your personal business that is always weighing on your mind, and focus on the family. Not the religious sense of it. yeah, I'm not advocating that. But rather being wholly present with them, mentally present, engaging, enjoying that time. Because now I look at my 4-year-old, and he's been a part of my business since he was 6 months old. I remember setting him on a blanket while I did construction over here, nursing him until he was 18 months old, stopping my work to go and nurse him and take those times. And I look back on it, and I remember a whole lot of work, but I definitely missed out a whole lot on the parenting aspect. And even though he was present, I wasn't present. So finding that time in your brain and the space and the emotional energy to invest in them before it goes by, because it goes by way faster than business. Business will always be there. There will always be work to be done. The career continues, whereas your children grow up so fast. So that's something that, you know, I have to work on, but we all have to be really conscious of.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you hadn't said that, I would probably say something along those lines about, you know, I think as a parent, you're always on call. There's that great commercial, right, with the NyQuil or something. I'm going to be sick tomorrow, boss. You know, you really are always on. I think as an entrepreneur, you're always thinking about your business. And I think what you said is so true. And I think that's where the relaxer timeline comes in again. It's like, my daughter is growing up so fast, like she's going to be 1 year and 2 weeks, and that went by like that, and my business will be there. I have my whole life ahead of me to pursue this calling and to grow it and change it, and it will change and grow, but she's not always going to be this age, so to save her is really wonderful. I think, Tara, you were the one who said you don't like the word balance. Maybe you did say that on your podcast, but I have trouble with that word too, in the sense that there's this, it's like the myth of being the perfect parent and the perfect entrepreneur, like that you can somehow do it all and it's going to be graceful and balanced. That hasn't been my experience. It's really hard to do it all, and it's mostly really messy. you know, there's some days where I feel like I was a pro mom and I did a great job, I answered all the emails, I was exactly the way I hoped and wanted to be, but it's not that way a lot of the time. And so to be okay with that and to like realize balance looks different all the time. Balance sometimes is like this, and again, the support, like if the challenge of having to work after dinner, when I would rather be hanging out with my husband, but I've been with my daughter all day and I really do have 10 emails that I need to answer. So the support of having someone who gets it and wants you to be successful at the thing that you're passionate about is challenging for everybody.
I think so. Those are absolutely great. I completely agree. And I think one of the things too that's difficult about being an entrepreneur and it's sort of similar in terms of being an entrepreneur and being a parent. This is maybe the therapist side of me, but we all have wounds and limiting beliefs and imprints that we develop in childhood, even if we have the best childhood in the world. And as we get into adulthood, those are the things that we need to work through in order to be a better parent or to grow as a parent. But they're also very oftentimes the very things that we need to grow as entrepreneurs. So that, you know, I know for myself growing up, one of the big messages was like, anything that you do for yourself is worthless. You know, that was a very, very powerful message. So you can see of being an entrepreneur, like, that's not a great message to be useful. So I find that one of the big challenges that I think that we have to grow in order just to, practically, in order to be the parent that I want to be, in order to have the business I want to have, like I need to do a whole lot more personal growth than somebody that can just go to work and just punch a clock and call it a day. You know, we can't really, we do have to be, what I hear in both of it is being present. We have to show up in a way in the world that a lot of people don't have to show up. Or we just don't get into business, or you know, our lives fall apart. So I think it's I think one of the things that's constantly challenging for me is I get this place and go, oh my God, you mean I have to do that? You mean I have to go there? And so I think that's one of those things that internal growth is also a big part of being an entrepreneur and a parent.
They both touched on something I want to go back to, and that's priorities. It's really hard to prioritize. There are times where you're like, I have to send that email. Do you really have to send that email at 12 o'clock at night? Because chances are they're not going to read it at 12 o'clock at night. So I have to stop and look and go, is this really a priority? And having a good sense of being like, no, Kristen, it's not a priority. What is a priority is that you get some sleep, or that you spend some time with your partner, or that you have sex. You know, like find priorities and actually like, you know, stop and go, this is a priority, this is a priority, this is really not a priority, I can do that next week. Because that's a huge challenge. You want to do it all today, and today just isn't long enough.
Well, you did a beautiful segue for me, because I want to talk about what your days look like. So, you guys have 3 very different businesses, and I want you to kind of help shed some light on what a typical day looks like for the parentpreneur. Speaking of priorities.
I'm gonna let you get
So
it.
I love the word typical.
Typical, right? So if I'm trying to be a successful parentpreneur, how am I supposed to structure my day?
Well, one of the things I know for myself is that one of the things I learned was the idea of doing income generating things first in your day, which is I don't always do that, but that's my goal is to do income generating things first. It's so the first thing obviously, you know, getting my son to school because he's in 4th grade, so getting, you know, spending time, getting ready, getting off to school, and then what I really try to do is do those income generating things right away, because it's so easy to get caught up in there's 1,000 different things you could do, and then I forget like which one of them are. At the end of the day, like being an entrepreneur, we have to focus on what are the things that are going to grow my business. And there's so many things to do, and you know, there are the emails. You're like, okay, is this email right now going to grow my business? You know, and sometimes, honestly, some people just you got to put it to the back burner because it's the priority piece. So for me, it's I try to structure my day where I'll do sort of income generating things at the beginning of the day. I'll do my podcast. I might record my podcast in the middle of the day, and then in the afternoon, I might see some. I also have a therapy practice, so I might see some therapy clients. So I try to, for me, I just try to bunch things together so that I'm not, because I'm one of those people, I like doing several different things, so I try to structure my day in a way that I have sort of groups of activities that are grouped together, so I'm not having to switch my brain too much in an hour, you know, now I'm thinking of this, now I'm thinking of that, but really, okay, now I'm doing the income generating stuff, all right, now I'm doing some, you know, some publicity kind of stuff, and now I'm, you know, working with a couple of clients, and try to bunch that, try to structure my day so I bunch those things together.
I like that idea of doing the income generating things first. Hey, Doug. Well, for me, my daughter, I work when she naps, and sometimes that's only like half an hour twice a day. And so I was joking with Nina in the audience that it's sometimes just enough to get out everything and like, okay, where am I at? And start, and then she wakes up. So I feel like also a lot of what I do is writing for ceremonies. It's a lot of writing and being creative. And so I'm not always in the space for that, especially if I know I'm only going to have half an hour. There's no way that I can like read through my notes and start coming up with some ideas and start writing something beautiful. I have to have a big chunk of time for that. So a lot of times I have like a huge working to-do list, and it's like, okay, what do I have time for, and what do I feel like I can handle right now? So it's not, right now I don't really feel like I'm not in the, I'm kind of in like the survival mode of having a small child and being, you know, on with her most of the time. Means working at night, and like that's when I can have 4 hours to stay up until midnight, to have 4 creative hours to write a ceremony. It's not going to happen in the day. It's going to be a Facebook post in the day. It's going to be responding to some emails and balancing my budget and checking in on my wedding wire account or whatever. So I think I just have to be flexible and go with what's happening and what kind of space I'm in, and you know, just kind of know like it's not looking perfect today, but I'm one more day that I'm doing my thing, and kind of have faith in that process. That's my day.
I've recently shifted from a day to a week because what I found, my days are so variable. On Wednesdays, my day starts at about 8:30. My son sleeps late. I'm blessed. My day starts at 8:30 and I do the mommy thing in the early hours, and then it's work all day. And then I don't actually count work until I go into the restaurant at night, and that's at 4, and then I work until 1 a.m. So my day can often be 18, 20 hours. You learn not to sleep a whole lot in my business. You can sleep when you're dead, right? Or I'll just die early. So I've stopped looking at it as a day, because what I found was there's too much for me to accomplish in a single day, and I get bogged down and I get frustrated when I didn't get through my list because things popped up and I wasn't able to do it. So I've now shifted to looking at my week, because it gives me more time. I can see this is a time where if I get my stuff done on Tuesday, on Wednesday, I have a couple of hours that I can take care of me. So I'm able to find the holes. If I didn't get something done on Tuesday, it's okay, because I can still slot it in on Wednesday or on Thursday or on Friday. So I've moved away from the day and started looking at my business in terms of a week. It gives me more versatility and flexibility. It allows me to hit my targets more often and to ensure that I'm getting my stuff done. So my to-do list is longer at first glance, but I have more time and opportunity to fulfill all of those needs and meet my to-dos. It's constantly changing. A big part of what I do is problem solving. Last night at 9 o'clock, I had my glass front door break. And I'm like, where's the duct tape? What do we do? The door is broken. Uh-oh. So your day is constantly, it's a curveball. My staff go, the floor flooded. We don't have any ones. It's Sunday, there's no ones. Where am I going to get $100 in ones? So you become problem solving, and by building in time throughout your week to address those problems that pop up, they become easier to manage. Instead of never having any time in your day to deal with these things, I know when my time is. I've allocated, this is a little bit here where I can address the disgruntled client that didn't get what they were expecting, and I can deal with that. I set aside the time for banking because I do my banking once a week. So that way I can plan ahead for that. And I know on Monday I need to go to the bank on Tuesday, so I do all of my Monday stuff today. And that's been a really great way for me to manage my time, but ensure that I'm meeting the needs of my business and still my family time. Having a 4-year-old, he's finally at a stage where like we do our work together. He'll sit next to me with his activity book or his little computer or his blocks, and then I sit there with mine, and we work side by side. I create little homework pages for him, and he practices writing his name on the days that he's not in preschool. So we found that. I found the days that he's in preschool are like highly productive. I know on Tuesday and Friday I have to kill it. I'm paying somebody else to watch my kid. It's costing me money to work today. So I need to make the most of that time. So I've structured that and built that into how I achieve my goals. So try the week approach if you're finding that the day approach is becoming overwhelming.
Very good. See, awesome experiences. Okay, so yeah, along those lines, so not necessarily a time specific, but is there one thing that you attribute your success as a parentpreneur to, right? So what would you say are some of the key elements for starting and running a business when you're also managing a family?
Fearlessness. We are all afraid. It's there, every one of us, but you just have to ignore it. Do it anyways.
So, I'm sorry, the question is,
So
what do we attribute our success to?
Yes, as a
And-
parentpreneur. And then what would you say are a key element or two for starting and running a successful business and managing a family?
I mean, I think my success, and it just all ties back, is like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'll be doing it the rest of my life. And, so it's just not a flash in the pan, or it's not like, we'll see, I'll do this until I feel otherwise, and maybe I will. But the sense of drive and the sense of purpose, I think, is what makes me successful. Because it's part of who I am, my business is who I am, and it's so, like, that just kind of, in that way, it's very effortless. Like, this is just my path, this is what I'm doing in this life. I think what makes me successful at that, because that wouldn't necessarily make you a desirable commodity, to be called, I think, is, I guess I would say maybe my integrity, or like that I want to honor this calling and this drive and do it really well. I don't want to just be like, I didn't want to just get ordained online. I could have become a minister in a click of a button, but that wasn't the calling. The calling is to do it and to do it well, to do it with integrity. So if I'm going to do an ad, or if I'm going to do a podcast interview, I'm going to do it well. I'm going to, put myself behind it in a way that I feel like honors me and reflects well on this path. So I think, that's my kind of goal. It's not to slap things together. It's to really take the long view about my path and how I represent the business kind of all the time.
So I would say one thing for me would definitely be building a deep network. So I think relationships are really important. I don't think you can do it yourself. I mean, I can't grow my business, the kind of business I have, like, I need people, right? And I once heard this one say, she's like, money comes from people. So if you need more money, you need to, either meet more people or have deeper relationships with the people that you already know. And so I never forget that, and then I was a parent to people too, because, how many times it happened that, I've had something to go to, but there's a conflict, and then, you need somebody there to, to watch your child, or you need support, right? We need support. So having a deep network, that's one of the things that I'm really working on right now, is just continuing to build and deepen my network, my personal and professional network. I think that really makes you, that is more valuable than anything I think that you could possibly have, having that deep network. I feel like there was a part B to that, though. What was the?
No, you kind of hit both of them.
Okay.
Yep.
Actually, before we go on, I want to touch on it a little bit more. One of the things that I integrated into my first business was I pulled it from the nonprofit sector, and that's the idea of a mission statement or a vision for your business. That's been really vital as a driving force, because I understand what is my core value. Why do I do what I do? For me, a lot of it's community-based. I also identify as a social entrepreneur, because I built into the fabric of my businesses ways that we give back. So that even as a for-profit venture, I'm still mindful of what is my mission, what am I doing, and I return to that, because it's easy to lose sight. You get overwhelmed and you're like, why am I doing this? It's more than I can handle. But I return, what is my mission? Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Well, this is why. I established that in the early development of my business. And sometimes it changes and it evolves and we refocus our energy. But knowing that there is a fundamental driving force, I have a greater vision beyond the day-to-day and a statement of my business. And I can tell people when they ask, this is our mission. And a lot of people think, wait, it's a bar, it's a restaurant, and it has a mission? I'm like, yes, it does have a mission, and that's what I need to continue to do what I do. So I always suggest that as you develop your business, or even if you already have one, stop and say, what is my mission? What is the vision that I see for this business, and how does that relate to my community and that support network that's so vital, and let that be a cornerstone to your success.
Very well said. So this is the last question from me, my last question, but then we're going to open it up to you guys to see if you guys have anything, or if I didn't ask something, you guys wanted to chat about a topic or something that you wanted to share, that's definitely going to be the space for it. But my last question is, where do you turn for mentorship or advice when you feel stuck as a parentpreneur?
One of the things that for me, I think one of the gifts of podcasting has been that I do get to meet so many great people. And so a lot of times, honestly, the people that I have turned to have been people that I've gotten to know from podcasting, guests that I've interviewed who become mentors for me. And I've had formal coaches, certainly. But some of the people, networking events certainly have been great, people that I met from networking events. But I am amazed at the number. What's been amazing for me is to be able to interview people who I've looked up to as being, up here on this pedestal, get to know them as people, and then actually be able to turn to them. And it's really nice to be able to have someone who's been there on the path before you and is a little further down the road say, it's okay, I went through the same thing, you're going to be all right. Just that alone, there's something so valuable about that. So for me, that's been a big part of how I found mentorship.
I'm definitely looking forward to, I'm glad that you've created Cultivate Community, Tara, because I think, business, entrepreneur, parents do need support, so I'm grateful for that. And I would say for me, I feel like I don't have a lot of peers, in the sense of, I don't know a lot of other ministers in the area who are creating ceremony. So just to have other people who are balancing or not balancing, whatever they're doing with parent entrepreneurship is really helpful. For me, Doug, you said earlier something about how our self-work, our work on ourselves is really tied to our business. And I feel like that's so true for any business, and especially for me, since I really identify my business as me, like I'm the commodity, is like my creativity or my, stewardship of your event and of what you're going through. So I feel like when I'm having a hard time, I really have to turn to the things that nourish and support me and that offer me wisdom. It might be like listening to my old Ram Dass tapes, and he's talking about, spiritual things like getting ego and whatever. Like, I feel like I have to really pan out and get in touch with the philosophy and the way that I want to live my life and the things that feel supportive to me as a human being in terms of my belief systems and again, the sort of bigger picture. What's the bigger picture of me? And that lets me get through whatever challenge.
I'm quite lucky in that I have a very large peer network. If you own a bar or a restaurant, I can go and I can see what you're doing. So a lot of times, though, it's finding the right peers and the right resources and the people with actual valuable knowledge and experience, because people have so many ideas for me. I got one just yesterday that I thought was hilarious. There was a photo on Facebook and I liked it. And somebody suggested I put this on my menu, and it was a gigantic mashed potato cake topped with fried chicken and gravy and collard greens. And I thought, that does look delicious. The southern girl in me wants to eat that. Should I put that on the menu? No, that is a terrible bit of advice. I can see my cook back there trying to perfectly sculpt these mashed potato cakes so they look like wedding cakes with chicken wings. Not a good call. So there's always going to be people that want to tell you how to run your business, that are going to give you words of encouragement and advice. You have to kind of learn to filter that out, because a lot of times they don't understand the inner workings of your business. And it's hard because you don't want to say to them, thanks, but I'm good, I don't really need it. You have to find a way of kind of listening without listening, and letting it go in one ear and out the other, because they don't really understand. You do. You work your business every day. Your instincts are the best instincts, but sometimes you want to turn to other people. I'm lucky that I actually have a team of people. You probably don't have employees and staff as much. I really rely on my people. A lot of people as the boss kind of feel like they don't want to breach the relationship by asking your underlings or your employees for advice on how to run your business, I kind of break that mold in that they work here every day, they know what needs to be fixed, they know what we can do better, so I solicit them for ideas, and we work together. We have time where we brainstorm. I look to my events coordinator as a huge resource because she deals with our artists and our musicians. She's out there doing networking events just like I am, making those connections. So I trust that somebody else can represent my brand, that understands what our goals are, but also that they can get those resources and come back to me and go, you know what, I was just talking to so-and-so and this is a great idea. And sometimes I have to trust that other people have good ideas for my business. And I'm just going to try it out and see. Take those chances, take those risks, but listen when people, and sometimes it's customers. Like, I get great advice from some of my customers. And I mean, you hear somebody and they're like, oh, that's pretty good. Well, if somebody gives you a good advice, then chances are they might have some other thoughts and they can become a resource for you. So look within your existing group of customers or clients or friends, and if they've had a good idea in the past, maybe they have one now when you need it. But some of the others, just ignore them. Because not all advice is good for your business. Okay?
Thank you. Okay, so final thoughts. In like a sentence or two, you guys have like one little bit of actionable advice that you can send the audience away with to go be better parent entrepreneurs?
I'll leave people with my. I'll leave you with my sign off for my show, Creating Change on Empower Radios, is keep creating, the world needs your gifts. So creating both in our businesses and also creating and helping to raise children that will contribute to the world. So that would be my sign off.
That's a great sign-off. Yeah, I guess I would say something similar in terms of that the world does need people who are doing what they're passionate about, and I think we as a society and culture need people to know that you can kind of make it up, and it doesn't have to fit the mold. It doesn't have to be, what it looks like. And it's something I really value showing my daughter, as you said, showing your son. When you come to an event like this, it's like, Mommy actually does her own thing, and I'm successful at it, and I love it, and you can too.
I think one of the hardest things as a serial entrepreneur is when it's time to change gears. Sometimes we can be on a path that is really, really hard, and you just keep pushing and pushing forward, whether it's in your family or in your business. You're like, if I just keep pushing, it will work. Sometimes we have to stop and go, this isn't going to work. Now what? And being willing to step off the path that you're on and choose a different path. Whether you have a business that is struggling and you feel like, I just don't know if this can, take the time, look inward, and establish maybe this is not the right path right now, and make those changes. Because the road is hard as a parent entrepreneur, but it shouldn't be impossible. And if it feels impossible at times, it may be. So don't hesitate to change. That's why we're entrepreneurs. We take those risks, and sometimes the risk is a new vision, a new business, a new profession, and so don't hesitate to do that. And maybe it's that you leave the entrepreneurial thing alone for a little while and focus on the family. Or maybe it's that you find other options with your family as they get older and they're now in school, and you can return back to that entrepreneurial spirit. It's a life adventure. It's not just today. If you choose this path, you're on it. And it's really hard to go back to getting a real job.
That's again, you're like my segue. Like, that's awesome. So I want to put it out to the crowd for a question or two. I mean, we're good on time. We have time for like another one more. Yeah, Lydia, what do you got?
Well, so I'm not a parent yet, but I will be. T-minus 2 weeks.
I think in like 15 minutes.
Yeah, right. Already parenting. I'm already in your
Yeah.
So if you guys were, where I'm at, like about to become a parent, have a small business that, I tell everyone that my business was my first baby, and I'm really passionate about it, and I really love it very much, but I wonder what you guys would say to me as someone who's about to have an actual baby. What would you have told yourself before you had?
Business do you have?
I run a massage therapy practice called The Flexible Farmer. So right now I have transitioned out of treating. I have 3 other LMTs and a physical therapist that work for me. And I also do on-site safety trainings, which all happen happen in April for farmers, and that's what I do, and so I've had to turn a lot of people down for this year, but if you were back before your kids arrived and you were in your entrepreneurial state, what would you tell yourself?
Grow your business. And it might sound counterintuitive, but this is an opportunity since you can step away from the day-to-day operation of your business for networking purposes. Get out, stay present, put your face out there. As business owners, when you have like a four-wall business and a front door, it's really easy to get caught up inside those doors and waiting for the business to come to you. One of the most important things you can do is step outside of your business and go out to the people. So this is an opportunity as you have a young baby, you can get out there, young mom, use that baby as leverage. I mean, especially if it's really cute. But this is an opportunity to actually get your face out of there because it sounds like you have people that can continue, that will maintain the premises and make sure that your business stays where it's at, but it's also an opportunity for you to grow it using the resources that are out there, finding the time. It's hard in those early months because you're exhausted and with a little baby and all of these things, but babies are surprisingly transportable. You can take them anywhere. And I did. My son, I spent time in the building inspector's office, and I would go in with my 6-month-old, and I would have questions, and I knew he didn't want to say yes to my demands, but I would distract him with the baby. And she's there playing with my adorable kid, and I'm asking about this plumbing code and that electrical code, and by the end, he's saying yes to everything. I'm still not sure how I've done some of the things I've done, but I use the baby. So don't hesitate, bring your child with you, and use that as an opportunity to get out there and do the things that you probably haven't had the time to do in the past.
Yeah, that's great advice. I feel like it was yesterday that I had a new baby, like yesterday. I feel like I definitely remember that, and I think that's great advice that Kristen gave you. I would also say, you're going to have weird little snippets of time. I remember like the 2 or 3 hour nursing schedule, so I'd be up in the night, all through the night for the first little while, and I would just try to like have my phone and answer some emails at 4 in the morning because that was really the time that I had. And I didn't want to let my business go, but I didn't want it to interfere with being present for her. So I really just tried to find the littlest snippets of time to do what I could when I could, and to let a lot of things slide. I think I felt like my business was my first baby too, and so I was like feeling really driven going into it, and to like soften and to let that go for a little while, and just be okay with that was really important for me, and it might be important for you as well. But then I also shared in my interview with Tara, like getting back to it felt awesome because I felt like so many things had changed and my body was crazy and just like it changes you so much to have a child that it was kind of comforting to do some of the normal business things. Like I had to go officiate some weddings and I felt like this is so overwhelming before I did it, and then I did it and thought, oh, I am still that person. That's still a part of me. I'm still really good at that. I can still turn that on when I need to, and that was really important. It was really important to just have some of that built in, to just keep going, even if it's super truncated, to remember that part of yourself.
And I'm going to defer to the wise ladies on my left, having never been pregnant. I'm going to remember back to my gender studies classes and defer to the wise ladies on my left. The only thing I want to say is I thought about use the baby. Use the baby. I like that a lot.
As a more specific parenting advice, scheduling. I found that it was really important that I stick to a schedule with my son by, waking him up. And I know it seems like you're going to go in and wake up the baby. Yeah, I woke my son up at, 8. If he was still asleep at 8:30, he's always been a good sleeper. I would wake him up at 8:30. And I would make sure that we had a 15-minute window for naps. It didn't matter where we were, what we were doing. We were home, and he was going to bed in that window, waking up at the end of nap. And by creating a really strict sleeping schedule, I was able to do the things I did with my business. Now, not everybody wants to have that kind of rigid schedule with their child, and that's a total parental choice. But for me, that was really beneficial because now my son, I see the benefits of that in having a rigid schedule. He went to bed at 8 o'clock on the dot every night, and still at 4, he rarely is out by more than about 15 minutes. And that's helped me a lot in finding the time for my business and creating good practices very early on.
Can I add one thing to your question, Lydia? One thing for me, the biggest thing that I learned was letting go of the guilt, because mommy guilt is everywhere. Just about parenting in and of itself, there's all this mommy guilt, and I'm sure it's true for dads too, but I think it may be a little bit more true for moms. But you've got the mommy guilt, and then you've also got, you do have another baby, and so you have mommy guilt over your business as well. And like they've all said is, remain in the moment and accept your choice, whatever the moment is. If your son has to be, or your daughter has to be first in that moment, awesome. Even if there's stuff that you have to do for your business, or if you have to take a time and, hand the baby over to somebody else and say, rock with him, or with her, sorry, I have 2 sons, so, rock with her so you can go take a shower, or take care of something with the business. Just let go of the guilt. It's a hell of a lot easier said than done, but just keep reminding yourself that guilt doesn't accomplish anything. So.
Thanks, Mindy. I needed to hear that.
Let go.
Any other questions? No more?
I have to acknowledge something that Hannah said too, because one of the things I felt the most guilty about is someone made an offhanded comment about, you see these women and they can't even be with their babies while they're breastfeeding, they're on their cell phones. And I can't tell you how many times, that's the only time I felt like I could take the moment to respond to, either a text message or, and this is work related, not just social text messaging, but to send an email, return it at 4 o'clock in the morning because I was breastfeeding and she's practically asleep. So how much more with her do I need to be? And that was actually the question that I wanted to bring up, is how do you counteract the expectation of everyone around you that has the way that you should be doing this? And there is no perfect way of being an entrepreneur. It doesn't look the same for anybody, and there's no perfect way of being a parent. What you do for Bronnery is a totally different baby than Aria. Even though you have a great way of doing it, that might not work for my baby. So how do you counteract? It's one thing to say, let go of the guilt, or let go of, we all try so hard to develop ourselves personally. We've established that's a key to being an entrepreneur, is working on making yourself the best that you can be, so that you can bring that to your business and as a parent. But how do you let go of the expectations of the people around you that set this bar, that don't understand? They're not living it.
I mean, for me, I feel like I pretty much always do the best that I can. And sometimes that means fighting with my husband, and it's really ugly, and and that is actually the best that I can do in that moment. I have an animal brain, whatever. But that is the best that I can do, and then I can come back later and say, you know what, I was so out of line. I'm really sorry. And sometimes the best that I can do with Bronnery is be like, she's been sick the past week, and all she wanted to do is be on me. And I was great for day 1, great for day 2. By day 3, I'm starting to get a little. By day 4, I'm like, I have to get out of the house for a minute, and I feel like that's the best. I'm doing the best that I can, and I think, I think most of us are doing the best that we can at any given time. But people know that about me. I think people know that about you, and I think a lot of the judgment that we imagine is coming from other people is actually coming from us. People may be judging us, but they think about us for 1 minute and then they're on to their life. So you really are the critic. More, even if anybody else is doing it, you're the one that's hearing it over and over and over and over and over. So I think I just try to say it to myself, I'm doing my best.
I was just going to add to that, though, just from the perspective of being a guy, that we do have really oppressive stories about, for women and what being a mother is and what we expect. And Jennifer Garner talks about how if she goes out and goes out on a press junket, people ask her, how do you do it with your kids? And she's like, nobody ever asked Ben Affleck the question. We have the same kids, right? Well, why does nobody ever ask Ben Affleck? How are you able to do this work when you have kids? But people will ask Jennifer Garner that. So we do have some really culturally oppressive stories. And I'll say as a guy, wow, you didn't abandon your family, you're amazing, right? You have such a low bar. That might be the other oppressive story for men, but I can tell you, it's it's way easier to be, like, I mean, I don't know if it's way easier, I don't know what it's like to be a woman, but I will say that, like, I don't think being a guy had that same pressure. I feel like it's such a double standard of, you know, wow, you spend any time with your children as a man, that's really amazing. How do you do it? Right? Because if you're a woman, it's like, why are you not glued to your child 24/7? Are you a bad parent? So if you start thinking about just that craziness of how crazy those stories are, sometimes that can also let go of some of that.
Thank you.
I'm going to drop a really bad word here. But I recently read a blog post by Mark Manson, who is a hilarious blogger. And he wrote this article, and it's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And it is so poignant and so beautiful. You need to read it. Because the whole thing, I mean, there's more bad words in it than anything I've read in a really long time. But that's a big part of it. You have to let go of that, because you're exactly what you're saying. Yes, as women, we're held to different standards. Why are you not with your child 24 hours a day? I had a nanny, and people are like, why do you have a nanny? Why do I have a nanny, really? Like, what kind of question is that? You have to just not care, because somebody is always going to have something to say, and you gotta let it go. And that's like wisdom for life, for parenthood, for business, for all of it. Just don't care.
There's a bumper sticker I love, it's what you think of me is none of my business.
All right.
You wouldn't worry about so much about what people thought about you if you realized how seldom they did.
Very true as well. So I want to take this opportunity to thank the panelists, but to also let it go, right? Let the formality of the panel go. I definitely, if you guys are into the collaborative conversation, I don't want to stop that, but I don't want us like sitting us over here and you guys over there kind of thing anymore if you don't want it to be like that. So I just want to take the opportunity to formally thank the panelists. Thank you guys for being here. Thanks for making the event.
Yeah.
Kyle for John Glover Agency. And any closing remarks from Tara?
Thank you.
Peach, you're a peach.
Okay, so to close the event, and we can take as long as we would like to continue networking and getting to know each other. One thing that I will offer to you as we start kind of having the conversation, share what your like quote unquote parent pride moment is. You know, we talk a lot about kind of the curated life that we all get nowadays, where we only get to see the highlight reel of other people's lives because we're engrossed in social media. And one of the things I love to do is like share that moment where I'm like, oh my God, this is the kind of mother that I am. and for those of you who have not heard this story, my daughter was chewing on a piece of pumpernickel bagel, which she didn't have any teeth at the time. It's going to go a long way. I was elbow deep in dirty dishes in the sink loading the dishwasher. And all of a sudden I hear like this slurping noise. I'm like, what on earth is that? And I look over and sure enough, Aria has her big chunk of bagel and she is dipping it into the dog's water bowl, letting it soak up all the water and then sucking the water out of the bagel. And I had this like flash of horror, like, oh my God, is anyone looking around and seeing what my daughter is doing while she's under my care? And I'm like, wait a second. Do I want to rush over there with like dirty dish stuff all over my heart? No, she's gonna keep sucking on that. And I did eventually go over there, but you know, I had a recent guest on my podcast who is a naturopathic doctor, and she said I was actually doing my daughter a favor, so mom for the win. She's got a rock solid immune system now. So if you get a chance, share with a couple of us just to share the glorious reality of life and share with at least one person what that parent pride moment is. And on that note, we are going to wrap it up, but if you are willing to stay on a mailing list for the Cultivate community as we start kind of really launching this, I will be doing a monthly event in different locations here in the Valley. There is a mailing list sign-up form right over there, and I do have a PDF that I put together of our favorite 10 resources for parent entrepreneurs, which I'd be happy to send you if you sign up for that. And if you have a business card, throw it in the back, that little ornate bin over there in front of the sign, because I have a bunch of raffle prizes to give away, so I'll be, from the looks of it, everybody's going to get a raffle prize. But there's some really cute greeting cards, there's a couple of t-shirts, a green cleaning gift basket, an agate nightlight, and a terrarium, my terrarium. So throw your business card in there, and before everybody leaves, we'll select a few of the winners. Okay? Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you.